The story I'm about to tell you is the reason I don't sleep with the lights off anymore. It started 3 weeks ago. My friend Daniel had just moved into an old house at the edge of town. The place was cheap, which should have been the first warning. Houses in that area usually cost more, but the landlord was eager to get rid of it. Now we know why. The house had that strange feeling the moment you walked in. The air was colder than outside, and the silence felt heavy. Like the walls were listening. We laughed about it at first, until we found the box. It happened while we were helping Daniel clean the basement. The basement was old, unfinished, and smelled like wet wood and rust. Our phone flashlights barely cut through the darkness. Then my light hit something in the far corner. A wooden chest. It didn't look like it belonged there. Everything else in the basement was covered in dust, but the chest looked untouched, almost preserved. Was this here before? I asked. Daniel shook his head. The lock on it was already broken. That should have been the second warning. Inside the chest was a book wrapped in a dark cloth. The moment we opened it, something felt wrong. Not scary at first, just wrong. The book was thicker than any book I had seen, with a cracked leather cover and symbols carved deep into it. Symbols that didn't look like any language I recognized. And the smell, it smelled old. Not just old like paper, old like something buried. Daniel joked that it looked like a demon book from a horror movie. We laughed. None of us were laughing 10 minutes later. When we opened it, most of the pages were filled with strange diagrams, circles, and writings that twisted across the paper like they were alive. Some pages looked scratched out violently. Others had drawings of figures standing inside circles, surrounded by shadows. But one page was different. Someone had marked it. There was a symbol drawn over and over again, darker than the rest, like the ink had been pressed harder. And underneath it were words. English, but written shakily, like the person who wrote them was terrified. Said, "Do not perform this ritual." We should have stopped there. Instead, Daniel turned a page. More instructions. Candles. A circle. A chant. And at the bottom of the page, written much darker than everything else, "Do not perform alone." The room suddenly felt colder. I remember laughing nervously and saying someone was just messing around. But that's when something happened. The basement door upstairs slammed shut. All of us jumped. Daniel ran upstairs to check it. No wind. No open windows. Nothing. That should have been the moment we threw the book away. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. When Daniel came back down, Marcus was staring at the last line of the page. He looked pale. I asked him what was wrong. He didn't answer at first. Then he pointed to the final sentence at the bottom of the page. The sentence none of us noticed before. It was written smaller than the rest, like the writer didn't want it to be seen. Marcus read it out loud, slowly, and the moment he finished, I felt something move behind us in the darkness. The sentence said, "If it answers, do not look behind you." None of us wanted to turn around, but something in the basement had just moved. None of us turned around. Not immediately. The basement had gone completely silent after Marcus read the sentence. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. I remember thinking someone was going to laugh. No one did. Daniel finally grabbed a metal pipe from the floor and slowly turned toward the darkness behind us. Nothing. Just the basement wall. Old shelves. Shadows. But something still felt wrong. Like we had interrupted something. Marcus tried to shake it off and said we were just scaring ourselves. We packed the book back into the cloth and went upstairs. But none of us stopped thinking about it. That night, Daniel texted our group chat. "I think this book is real." He sent pictures of the pages, the symbols, the circles, the strange writing. At first we thought it might be Latin or something ancient, so we started searching online. Forums, old archives, occult websites, anything. Hours passed. Nothing matched. The symbols didn't belong to any language we could find. And then something strange happened. Marcus sent a message. I found one. He had discovered a symbol on an old discussion forum about forbidden rituals and ancient entities. The page looked like it hadn't been updated in years, but the symbol matched one in the book. Exactly. Under the symbol was a translation. Just 3 words. Call the Watcher. None of us liked the sound of that. Daniel joked that it sounded like something from a movie, but the more we compared the symbols, the more matches we found. Piece by piece, the page started making sense. The circle wasn't for protection. It was for containment. The candles were meant to guide something. And the chant was an invitation. Around midnight, Marcus finally translated the full title written at the top of the page. When he sent it to the group chat, no one replied for a while. The translation said, "The ritual of invitation." That was the moment we should have stopped. Instead, curiosity pulled us deeper. We kept translating. And the more we understood, the worse it got. One of the instructions said the ritual must be performed at a specific time. 3:33 a.m. Another said silence must be kept while the chant is spoken. And then we translated something that made my stomach drop. A warning written between the symbols. Not before the ritual. After. If the knocking begins, it has heard you. Right after Marcus read that message in the chat, Daniel sent a voice note. At first we thought it was blank. Just static. But then we heard it. 3 knocks. Slow, heavy. Coming from somewhere inside his house. Marcus replied immediately. "That's not funny." Daniel answered with a single message. One that none of us have ever been able to explain. I didn't send that recording. After the voice note, the group chat went quiet. No jokes. No one trying to be brave. Just silence and the faint feeling that something had already begun. Daniel swore he never recorded anything. He even checked his phone and said the audio file wasn't on it. Yet all of us had received it. 3 slow knocks, clear and heavy, like someone hitting wood from the other side. Marcus tried to explain it away. Maybe a glitch. Maybe someone edited the sound. But nobody truly believed that. The timing was too perfect. We had just translated the warning about knocking. That night none of us slept well. At exactly 3:33 a.m., Marcus sent a message. "Are you guys awake?" I was. My phone lit up the room as I read it. A second message followed almost immediately. "I keep hearing something." I asked what he meant. He replied with one word. "Knocking." My stomach tightened. I told him to check the door or the windows. Maybe someone outside was messing with him. A minute passed before he answered again. "It's not coming from the door." Another pause. "It's coming from inside the wall." No one knew what to say after that. The next morning Marcus posted a picture in the chat. 3 faint marks on the wall beside his bed. Long scratches, like something had dragged sharp fingers across the paint. He tried to joke about rats in the walls, but the marks were too high and too straight. That was when Daniel admitted something he hadn't told us. The night after we found the book, he heard footsteps in his hallway. Slow steps moving toward his room. When he opened the door, the hallway was empty. But the basement light was on. He was sure he had turned it off. We told him to get rid of the book. Burn it, throw it away, anything. He said he would, but something in his voice made it sound like he hadn't even tried. Later that evening we decided to listen to the voice note again. Maybe we had missed something. At first it was the same as before. Static and those 3 knocks. Then Marcus noticed something. There was a sound under the knocking. Very quiet, almost hidden behind the noise. We increased the volume and listened carefully. It sounded like whispering. None of us spoke while the audio played again. The whisper was clearer this time, stretched out and unnatural, like someone learning how to form words. And then we understood why Daniel sounded terrified. Because the voice in the recording wasn't one of us. It was repeating the last line Marcus had read from the book. Slowly, almost patiently. "If it answers, do not look behind you." After the voice note, the group chat went quiet. No jokes. No one trying to be brave. Just silence and the faint feeling that something had already begun. Daniel swore he never recorded anything. He even checked his phone and said the audio file wasn't on it. Yet all of us had received it. 3 slow knocks, clear and heavy, like someone hitting wood from the other side. Marcus tried to explain it away. Maybe a glitch. Maybe someone edited the sound. But nobody truly believed that. The timing was too perfect. We had just translated the warning about knocking. That night none of us slept well. At exactly 3:33 a.m., Marcus sent a message. Are you guys awake? I was. My phone lit up the room as I read it. A second message followed almost immediately. I keep hearing something. I asked what he meant. He replied with one word. Knocking. My stomach tightened. I told him to check the door or the windows. Maybe someone outside was messing with him. A minute passed before he answered again. It's not coming from the door. Another pause. It's coming from inside the wall. No one knew what to say after that. The next morning Marcus posted a picture in the chat. 3 faint marks on the wall beside his bed. Long scratches, like something had dragged sharp fingers across the paint. He tried to joke about rats in the walls, but the marks were too high and too straight. That was when Daniel admitted something he hadn't told us. The night after we found the book, he heard footsteps in his hallway. Slow steps moving toward his room. When he opened the door, the hallway was empty, but the basement light was on. He was sure he had turned it off. We told him to get rid of the book. Burn it, throw it away, anything. He said he would, but something in his voice made it sound like he hadn't even tried. Later that evening we decided to listen to the voice note again. Maybe we had missed something. At first it was the same as before. Static and those 3 knocks. Then Marcus noticed something. There was a sound under the knocking. Very quiet, almost hidden behind the noise. We increased the volume and listened carefully. It sounded like whispering. None of us spoke while the audio played again. The whisper was clearer this time, stretched out and unnatural, like someone learning how to form words. And then we understood why Daniel sounded terrified. Because the voice in the recording wasn't one of us. It was repeating the last line Marcus had read from the book. Slowly, almost patiently. If it answers, do not look behind you. We didn't speak about the knocks or the whispers the next day. Talking about it felt wrong, like naming it could summon it. Yet the book called to us. The symbols pressed themselves into my mind even when I wasn't looking. By evening, we were all drawn back to Daniel's basement. The circle had to be perfect. Marcus measured the floor, chalk in hand, tracing the lines over and over. Candles were placed at precise points, their flames trembling as if afraid. The air was cold, heavier than before, carrying a faint metallic scent. Every shadow seemed alive. Daniel hesitated by the doorway, staring at the book. Do we even know what we're doing? His voice was small. We didn't answer. No one dared. Silence was required. We arranged the objects the book demanded. A bowl of black water, small stones etched with symbols, and a mirror placed at the far edge of the circle. The room felt smaller now, constricted, as if the walls themselves were leaning in. Marcus began the chant slowly, the syllables tasting wrong on his tongue, vibrating in the basement like low thunder. Halfway through, the candles flickered. One guttered out, leaving darkness that felt like it was crawling along the floor. Then another. The circle was incomplete. Fear pressed into our chests, but we could not stop. The book had warned, once begun, it must not be stopped. A sudden sound made all of us freeze. The basement door slammed, not once, but several times, shaking the walls. The knocking from before returned, louder, irregular, as though something was testing the boundaries. Marcus's voice faltered in the chant, but he forced it forward. The temperature dropped sharply. Our breath became visible. Shadows pooled unnaturally, gathering around the edges of the room. The mirror trembled on its own. A low humming began from the walls, vibrating through the floor into our bones. Then a voice whispered from the darkness, low and patient, repeating words none of us had spoken. Do not stop. Do not look behind you. We wanted to run, to destroy the circle, but none of us moved. The ritual had begun, and whatever it had awakened was already here. The final candle was lit. Its flame shivered violently, casting long, distorted shadows across the walls. The circle glowed faintly, not with light, but with something darker, as if it absorbed the air around it. Every breath felt thick, like we were inhaling smoke we could not see. Marcus began the chant, his voice barely audible at first, trembling with each syllable. Then it grew louder, rolling through the basement like a storm. The symbols on the book seemed to pulse, as if alive, and the pages rustled even though no wind stirred. The knocking started again, coming from every direction at once. It was no longer rhythmic. Slow, heavy blows interspersed with rapid scratches, echoing in the walls, the floor, and the ceiling. Something shifted in the corner, a shadow stretching impossibly long, reaching toward the circle without moving. Daniel's hands shook as he held the Blackwater bowl. A low hiss rose from it, faint at first, then sharp and deafening, like the voices of hundreds of creatures whispering in unison. The mirror trembled violently, then cracked along a jagged line, reflecting not us, but something moving behind the circle, something we could not see fully. Marcus faltered in the chant. The book seemed to scream, pages flipping on their own, symbols burning into the air with invisible fire. The shadows condensed, forming shapes that lurked just outside our peripheral vision. One of them moved closer, and the knocking became deliberate, aware. It answered us. I felt it first, a weight pressing on my chest, a cold that burned. Daniel stumbled back, eyes wide, whispering, "It's here." But no words could describe the thing pressing against reality itself. Then a voice, low and deliberate, joined Marcus's chant. Deep, ancient, and wrong. Not human. It repeated the words from the book. "Do not stop. Do not look behind you." The circle began to hum, a vibration in the floor that shook our bones. Candles guttered and went out one by one. Darkness pooled around us, thick and alive, pressing in. Whatever we had invited was no longer contained. And then the first shadow stepped forward. The shadow moved with purpose, gliding just above the floor, stretching impossibly, its shape never fully forming. The basement felt smaller, the walls closing in, trapping us. Every instinct screamed to run, but our feet felt rooted to the cold concrete. Marcus's voice wavered, faltering in the chant, but the book forced him onward. The thing didn't speak at first. It didn't need to. Its presence pressed against our minds, sending images of endless darkness, of eyes watching from places that should not exist. Then it came closer. A low scrape, like nails on stone, echoed through the basement. Daniel gasped, his back hitting the wall, eyes wide. The air itself seemed to thicken, making every breath a struggle. A cold hand brushed Marcus. The shadow moved closer, stretching unnaturally across the basement floor. Its edges were blurred, like smoke trying to take shape, but its presence was solid in the weight that pressed down on us. The air grew thick, making it hard to breathe. Marcus's chant faltered, his voice breaking with fear, but we all knew we couldn't stop. Suddenly, Daniel screamed. He had been standing too close to the edge of the circle, and before anyone could reach him, the shadow lunged. It was faster than anything human, impossibly fast, and the moment it touched him, he vanished. Not a scream, not a sound, just gone. The black water in the bowl rippled violently, spilling onto the chalk lines, but the circle remained unbroken. Marcus and I froze, staring at the spot where Daniel had been. The air was empty, but the weight didn't lift. Something had taken him, and the whispers grew louder, circling around us, repeating the final line of the book. If it answers, do not look behind you. Marcus dropped to his knees, clutching the book. "We have to stop it," he whispered, but the shadows had already spread across the room. They weren't confined to corners anymore. They were in the space between us, moving along the walls and the floor like liquid darkness. I tried to reach for the mirror at the far edge of the circle. It was trembling violently. When I looked at it, I caught a glimpse of something impossible. Daniel's face, pale and wide-eyed, pressed against the inside of the glass, but his body wasn't there. He mouthed a scream that never left his throat. The chanting continued. My voice joined Marcus's, though I didn't want it to, though every syllable felt like a knife scraping my soul. The shadows answered, forming shapes that mirrored us, stepping closer with each repetition. And then, the second knock came from the corner of the basement. Heavy, deliberate, and familiar. The shadow stretched toward the sound, as if it had been waiting. I realized in that moment that whatever we had summoned was not just here. It had begun to take, and there would be no way to stop it. The basement was no longer a room. It had become something else, a hollow space where the shadows clung to every surface, pressing against the walls, floor, and ceiling, folding them in ways that didn't make sense. Marcus and I huddled in the circle, trying to keep the chalk intact, the last candle flickering, its light barely holding back the darkness. Every breath I took felt like inhaling smoke, thick and acrid. The book lay open before us, pages fluttering violently as though caught in a storm we couldn't see. It was then we understood the first terrible truth. The ritual was never meant to summon something to this world in the way we imagined. The book had been misinterpreted either by the previous owners or by its own intention. The circle, the chant, the symbols, they were not a guide. They were a trap, a lure, a beacon. The ritual did not call the entity. It allowed it to cross over. I could feel it pressing against my mind now, a cold weight that made thoughts stumble and fracture. Marcus was shaking beside me, eyes wide, whispering words that had no meaning, though he insisted he was following the book. But the symbols were changing before my eyes. The diagrams that once looked like simple figures now writhed like living things, twisting into shapes that had no right to exist. The book was alive. I was sure of it. The whispers returned, low and patient, surrounding us from every direction. They weren't speaking one language. They were speaking everything at once, echoing in my skull, forming visions I could not comprehend. I saw Daniel again, his body twisted, suspended somewhere in the shadow, screaming without sound, trapped between what we had summoned and the world we thought we knew. The more I tried to think, the more the weight pressed down, clouding reason. I realized the circle didn't protect us. It constrained us. It forced us to remain. If we left, we would be easy prey. The book had instructed us precisely, once begun, it must not be stopped. Not because it was a guideline, but because it was a law. A law written by something older than time, older than the fear it demanded. I glanced at Marcus. His lips were moving, but I could not hear the chant. The shadows had already begun forming shapes around him, dark silhouettes that mirrored his movements. The whispers grew louder, almost playful in their cruelty, as if they were aware of the panic they were causing. Then I understood the final horror. The ritual was not just a passage for the entity. It was a test. Each of us was being measured for our fear, our will, and our curiosity. And it was already marking us. I could feel it in my bones. The thing in the darkness was learning, watching, judging. The mirror at the edge of the circle trembled violently. I forced myself to look into it. I thought I would see Marcus, I would see myself. What I saw instead made my stomach turn. It was nothing I recognized. Faces that were not ours, bodies that had no shape, eyes that stared from impossible angles. And between them, Daniel. But not Daniel as he was. He was stretched, warped, a puppet of darkness, his mouth moving soundlessly, screaming something that the shadows swallowed before it could reach my ears. The whispers were now words I could understand, though I wish I hadn't. Curiosity is the key. Fear is the lock. Once opened, the door never closes. It hit me then that the ritual's true purpose was not to summon, contain, or even harm in the traditional sense. It was to transform. To change those who dared touch it, to teach a lesson older than civilization itself. Some knowledge is forbidden because what answers cannot be bargained with, cannot be understood, and cannot be undone. I wanted to destroy the book, burn it, tear it, throw it into the void. But the pages would not tear. The symbols burned into my mind as if tattooed by the entity itself. The circle constricted our movement, but even if we broke free, the thing would follow. Its hunger was not for life. Its hunger was for understanding, for fear, for acknowledgement of its existence. Marcus's voice cracked. He whispered a question I could barely hear. What do we do? I wanted to scream at him that there was nothing to do. That the ritual had already completed itself the moment we opened the book. But the shadows flared, and the whispering grew into a chorus of voices, overlapping, deafening, and I realized it was too late. We were already part of it, already marked. The air shifted, colder now, pressing into our lungs, moving around the circle like water. Something passed through the walls, brushing against our skin without touching it. The candle guttered again, casting a single flickering light that illuminated a shape moving at the edge of perception. It was impossible to describe, yet it was unmistakable. A figure stepping closer, bending reality as it moved, its presence a living nightmare. The ritual had begun as a curiosity, a game. It had ended as revelation. We had not summoned it. We had invited it. And now it was here, watching, learning, waiting, and there was no escape. I will never forget the way Marcus's eyes met mine. Not in fear, not in hope, but in understanding. We had crossed a line, and the truth of the ritual was clear. Some doors, once opened, never close. The basement trembled. Shadows pooled and stretched. The book lay open, whispering in a language older than the world. And I realized something I could not unlearn. We had awakened something that was never meant to answer. And it had answered. By the time the final candle flickered out, I was alone. Marcus, Daniel, they were gone. Not taken by fear, not dragged away, just gone. Only the shadows remained, moving along the walls, folding into corners that should not exist, whispering in voices older than memory. The book lay open before me, pages still turning on their own, symbols writhing like living things. The basement no longer felt like a room. It was a void, stretching beyond sight, where darkness had weight and time no longer flowed. Every heartbeat sounded like a hammer striking concrete. Every breath felt like inhaling ash. I remembered the voice recording Marcus had played weeks before. The first 3 knocks. The whisper underneath. I found my phone in my pocket, trembling in my hands. Somehow it had recorded everything. The ritual, the shadows, the moments after Daniel vanished. I pressed play. At first, silence. Then static. Then a faint whisper, "Do not stop, do not look behind you." I froze. The voice was mine, or something perfectly imitating me. Another whisper joined it, Daniel's, or what was left of him. Then Marcus. Or not Marcus. A chorus of voices, overlapping, chanting the ritual in ways I didn't know we had spoken. They were everywhere and nowhere. The knocking started, slow, heavy, echoing in every corner of the room. Not from the walls. Not from the floor. From inside me. Each knock made my bones vibrate. Each knock whispered my name. And then I heard it. A new voice, deep and impossibly ancient. It spoke a single sentence, the kind that rips reason from the mind. "You invited me. I am here." I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. The phone slipped from my hands, clattering to the floor. The screen lit up, showing the shadows moving behind me, but not on the floor, not on the walls. Behind me, where I couldn't see. I remembered the warning from the first page. If it answers, do not look behind you. But curiosity is a curse. I turned my head. Nothing. Then a hand, black and impossibly long, wrapped around my shoulder. The shadows rose like smoke, swallowing the basement, the book, the circle, and me. My scream never left my throat. The phone, still recording, captured only the static, the whispering, and the final message. If you are hearing this, it knows how to find you now. The screen went black. The recording ended. And somewhere, in the shadows beyond this world, it waited.